सर अभी सेटअप अभी मैं लीव कर दूं.
हाँ जी. Are you able to see us?
Yes sir.
Okay. Good evening, guys. We are. I'm Robin, and we have Mr. Sumit. We are from Aussie Migration Team, and today we'll address all your questions and queries that you keep on asking. Otherwise, first of all, thank you very much for sending us all these inquiries on the different channels. And you must like, subscribe this channel so that you don't miss on the important updates that keep on coming. We would be doing these kind of sessions on regular basis. It could be monthly or bi-monthly basis. So please ensure that you stay in touch with us so that you don't miss out on the live updates on immigration, on migration to Australia. It could be education or various other visas. And during this session also, we would encourage you to keep on asking the questions. So please participate more so that we enjoy the richness of this session. Thank you. Now, today we are lucky to have Mr. Sumit with us. He is the proud founder of Aussie Migration. It's been around 10 years that he is very active in the industry. He's a very renowned name across Australia and obviously some Pan Asia countries also. So he keeps on doing a lot of seminars, and he is himself a registered migration agent and the founder for Aussie Migration. You can have more details of Aussie Migration on our website or on the Facebook page or otherwise in the comments also. So in case you had any specific things that you need to ask us about your case, please feel free to reach out to us. So good afternoon again, Mr. Sumit, and we welcome you to this channel.
Good afternoon, Robin, and thank you very much for organizing this sort of webinar. We are trying to make this session as much interactive as we can. And this session is not only in English, and we will try to pass the message in English or Hindi, whichever the views are easy and easy to communicate. So please ask your question, and we will try to answer every question if possible. Otherwise, if we miss any of the questions, we will send you the detailed answer on your emails if you leave your email ID in your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. Now, Sumit, first things first. I mean, I would ask you that what was the idea or what was the need of doing a session like this?
Robin, the primary purpose for this session is like we do a lot of consultations every day, and whenever we heard the stories from the clients, that's what happened with them in the past, or if they consult some of the people who gave them a wrong advice. So I thought at least we should encourage the people whenever you go to the registered peoples, because registered peoples are bound under the law. They have a code of conduct and they have a responsibility as well. So it's always go to the registered people. It will give you a confidence, and they will teach you a good pathway. Although people who are coming to Australia, they want to be get a permanent residency in Australia. So their ultimate goal is to get a PR. But there are different pathways to get a PR, and the only thing is like who will show you the pathway to get your to your destination. So that's the totally today's motive is to do a session by educating the people so that people can always choose the right pathway.
Thank you. So the point Mr. Sumit is making is that we must always reach out to the authorized people or authorized agents for our cases. Thank you, Sumit. I think that's the most important thing. Now, if we have a few questions that we already received, so I'll be taking on those questions first. And as and when the session progresses, we will have other relevant questions and we will picking up those questions also. Now, we will try to pick up some basic questions first, and then probably we'll evolve into certain visa as the discussion progresses. And as we said, we will be doing series of these events. Next one that we are planning is going to be on student visas also. So if you don't get your questions or if you don't get your answers, don't worry. We will reach out back to you, or otherwise we are going to have next sessions also. So Sumit, if we were to ask you, how much time does a skill migration or application process takes?
Robin, as you know that in the skill migration, there are different steps which involve and which takes a lot of time. For instance, if anyone wants to apply for the skill visa, which could be 491, 190, or 189, because they are the skill visas. So the primary step is a skill assessment. So if the people does not have a skill assessment, they are not eligible to move forward. The whole process having a major 3 steps or 4 steps, I can say. The first one is a skill assessment, EOI, and if you are moving towards 189, then you need to wait for the invitation from the federal government. But if you are focusing move towards the states, the 491, 190 state nomination application, and later on visa application. So overall, if I give you an idea from visa lodgement of 491, 190, or 189 to the finalization of the application, it could take somewhere around 8 to 12 months period of time. It's looked like a joke, but when government introduced 491, they mentioned that they will prioritize the applications and they will give a preference over finalizing the application over 190 and 189. But if we check the actual processing time, the 190 and 189 processing time right now is approximate 8 months, and whereas for 491 it's over 1 year. So it seems like a joke, but it's a reality right now.
Okay, thank you. I think Sumit has thrown a lot of visa classes and subclasses. If you miss out on those, don't worry. We would be sharing further more information. I mean, I also used to be a lot of confused on number of visas classes and subclasses, but don't worry. If that's the case, we are there to address your questions later on also. Now, you said 6 to 8 months or 8 to 9 months. That's right. So what is the cost of this process if somebody has to apply? How much money should he budget? Just the visa and the fees, not the travel part, just the visa process, please.
Okay, as I said, the first step is to get a skill assessment. With the skill assessment, there are different lot of bodies who have a different fee structures as compared to, depend upon the occupation to occupation. The other step is state nomination and then the visa application. So on an average, if I can say, if there is a family for 4 people and only the skill assessment of primary applicant, we are doing a skill assessment of primary applicant, it could be cost somewhere around $12,000 to $15,000, which include the skill assessment, which include the state nomination fees, which include the visa application fee, and some other random expenses as well.
Okay. Now, when we say authorized MARA agent, what does that mean? What does
Okay, to practice here in Australia, you need to have a license. Without license, if someone is practicing in Australia, then they are doing an illegal practice, and they can be, caught by the Australian Border Force, or a legal action can be taken by the legal authorities. So to become a registered migration agent, so we need to do a study first, and after that completion of a study, we need to get it registered with the OMARA, which is a part of Department of Home Affairs. So once we are registered with the OMARA, we get a license number, and from there on we can practice here in Australia, and we are legally advise the applicants on all sort of visa applications.
Thank you. So the point of discussing this thing is that when we have a regulatory body that keeps on checks on the people who are processing the visa, the authenticity is high. There would be some cases, or we might have heard some cases where misleading information was given to the applicant. But when we talk to authorized agent, all those things don't happen, because they are governed by the regulatory bodies. That's the whole idea. Okay, going back to our issue. Now we talk about the time, we talk about the cost. Now, if I were to apply for skill migration, what are the basic documents or the checks that I should keep in place before I talk to a migration agent?
Okay, like as the name suggests, skilled means a person who have skills in the past history, or a presently working in a skilled occupation. So there are, when we move towards the skill assessment, there are 2 major criteria which need to be hit first. The first one is the education qualification of the applicant. The second is the work experience. So if both of these criteria are met, then only they get the positive skill assessment. Yes, there are some skill assessing bodies which give you a skill assessment outcome just on the basis of your qualifications, such as Engineering Australia. Right. So after the skill assessment, we need to move forward towards the visa application. But in whole of the scenario, it's all related to your qualification and work experience. Other than it's a point based visas, you get a point of your age, you get a point of your qualification, your work experience in Australia or outside Australia. Are you single or do you have a partners, or what is the partner's English? Is you have been nominating by state for 491, 190. So there are a lot of different aspects of the points, but the minimum requirement for the skill visas, the applicant need to have at least 65 points to eligible to lodge an EOI or they may get an invitation. If someone has a less than 65 points, then they don't have a chance.
Oh, thank you. Now, if somebody migrates to Australia, what could be the cost of living in Australia, weekly or fortnightly, whichever way you want to tell?
See, cost of living in Australia is still affordable, although inflation is on a high rise, but still it's affordable. On an average, if I say a family of 4 people and if they are renting a unit, around $4,000 to $5,000 is a money which if they can spend, they live a good life. It's not a lavish life or a life, a lower level life, but on a medium level, if someone can spend $4,000 to $5,000, they can live a good life here.
Okay. Now, if somebody has a refusal on his case, can he still apply? Is he still has a chance, or it's a zero chance after that?
It's a good question, Robin. So it all depends like what sort of refusal they have. First thing. The second thing is that refusal is inside Australia or outside Australia? So I would like to explain a bit on that one. So if someone has applied outside Australia, then they can apply again if they meet the requirement. But if someone has any visa refusal in Australia, then they are barred with Section 48. Now, what Section 48 means, like in Australian immigration law, all the people does not apply for further visa application, although there are some exceptions on which you can still apply if your visa is refused in Australia. Now, the biggest example is during the COVID government lift of the Section 48 for some of the visa categories, even a skilled or employer-sponsored visa. So yes, there are options to apply for a visa, even though if your visa has been refused in Australia.
Okay. I heard somebody saying that generally Australia wants certain skill set to come into the economy. So my question would be, are there any profiles which have a strong chance as compared to other people? Let's say compare a profile of a teacher to any other profile which has a higher chances of getting higher success rate?
Yes, absolutely. So as you first one of them you have already mentioned, teachers. Yes, teachers are highly in demand in Australia, and the second occupation, it's not. I would say it's not only in Australia; it's everywhere in the world. The healthcare sector, because like the population is growing, everybody need a health facilities. So health people, if we see a lot of people talks only about the registered nurses or enrolled nurses, but there are a lot of other health related occupations in the list. If the people can target on that one, then even they can still able to move. Then as everyday technology is changing, cyber security is coming, lot of things going on. So IT engineers, they are also in a demand. And last but not the least, to do everyday activities, we need a trade people. It doesn't matter if we need to go for the car servicing, if we go to the hotel for a food or anything. So trade peoples are also in a demand. So overall, lot of occupations are in a demand in Australia. And the good news is in this budget, the government has increased the allocation for the skilled people. So it means a lot of scope for the people to come here in Australia.
So basically, you've talked about everybody. You talk about teachers or
Yes.
IT or
Yes.
trades, which means the opportunities are huge. There's a massive market, which
Yes.
is a good news for all of us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, is there any age restriction that we have before considering as an applicant?
Yes, there is age restrictions. So if we are focusing on a skilled occupation, so the maximum age limit is 45 years of age. But if we are considering going towards the employer-sponsored visas, like with the 482, there is no age limit. But yes, in other employer-sponsored visas like 186 or 494, there is a age limit for 45 years. Although in the law there are some exemption for some particular occupations, and with under that occupation, still people can apply for permanent residency, even though if they are over 45 years of age.
Okay, you used a word called as permanent residency. What is the difference between temporary visa or a permanent visa? What are the major differences between that?
So the temporary visa means if something happened with the applicants or with the clients in Australia, they still can be kicked out of Australia because it's a temporary visa, right? It just gives them a right to live here in Australia. But with the permanent residency, they are permanent member of the society. In simple words, they can be treated as a permanent member of the society, except they don't have the privilege to get an Australian passport. They can't vote, but most of them permanent resident have the same rights as of Australian citizens.
I'm sorry, I could not get it. So, are there any differences between the privileges they get as a permanent resident or a temporary? Is there any social privileges
Yes.
that?
So what happened? There is like a Medicare facility. Temporary resident does not get a Medicare facility, and but the permanent resident get the Medicare facility. There is a facility from the Centrelink. Temporary resident does not get that facility, but permanent resident get that facility as well. Now, 491 visa, which is a provisional permanent residence visa, it's sort of, you can say, temporary visa because it's not a permanent visa. But when the government introduced this visa, they give the Medicare facility to the visa holders as well. So only in 491 they get the Medicare facility, but there is no Centrelink facility or no monetary facility from the government.
Okay. Now, is there any chance that a person gets a temporary visa and does not get a permanent visa, or is just a stage or a milestone?
There could be a possibility that a person who come here on a temporary visa not able to get a permanent visa. If we see a lot of people in Australia, when they entered Australia, they move on a temporary visas. They can come here on a student visa, they can come here on a tourist visa, they can come here on a 49 visa, 482 visa. There are a lot of different subclasses. But it again depend upon applicants how they want to move towards the permanent residency. So someone if come here on a student visa, did a good course, focus on their pathways, and later on get the skill assessment, state nomination, and then they can move towards the permanent residency, or if they get employer sponsors as well. But if someone, I'm sorry to say that, but if someone is studying good occupation, good qualification, but working in any random occupation which is not related to your, qualification, then they have to go all the way very long to get a permanent residency, or some of the clients does not even get a permanent residency as well.
Okay, we got a question in the chat. Thank you, Nabindra. The question is, can a retired professional 60 and over age, an engineer or GIS can apply from outside Australia?
Yes, they can apply outside Australia, but the thing is they can come here on a 482 visa, but because they are over 45 years of age, they are not eligible to apply for the skill migration or are employer sponsored visas. But yes, there are certain exemptions available if they meet the requirement of the exemption. I'll give you one of the exemption, like high income threshold limits. So if they are earning a high amount in Australia, there are some exemptions available, and then they can apply.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, if I have studied somewhere else other than Australia, will my education be considered, or will it hold good for getting jobs or skill migration?
It's again, Robin, a good question. So the thing is, like, whenever we have to come to Australia, say on a skill migration or employer sponsored visa, in which we need a skill assessment, and again, as I told earlier, that there are two components: education qualification and work experience. So it does not mean that all the qualifications are equal to Australian qualification framework. Some of the overseas qualifications are not equal to Australian qualification framework. So their Australian government has a country education profile in which they have the database for almost majorly all the institutes. So when we check in that, in the system, we come to know whether it's equivalent to Australian qualification or not. I'll give you one example to understand. So in that database, certain institutes are described as Section 1, Section 2, Section 3. So if someone has done, say, for example, India, someone has done bachelor's from section 1 level university, that is equivalent to Australian qualification framework. But if someone has done with a section 2 with the first division, then it counted as a bachelor's. But if they have done their bachelor's in second division or third division, then it won't be counted as a bachelor's, it would be counted as an associate bachelor's. So this is how the government of Australia has make the criteria that which education is equivalent to Australian qualification framework and which is not.
I think it's too technical for myself, and I obviously would like to seek some advice because it's difficult to understand and then process your case yourself, or from a person who's not professionally qualified or is not experienced enough. Anyways, now we are talking about the qualifications or skills. Now, I think it's good time to ask about English proficiency also. What is the differences between IELTS, academic, PTE? Could you tell us more about it, please?
Okay, IELTS, PTE are two set of English test set up by the governments or which is actually accepted by the Australian government. Now IELTS is they have two different modules, right? One is academic, one is a journal module, but PTE has only one module. IELTS is basically in this IELTS and PTE basically have the 4 modules. They have listening, writing, speaking, and listening, writing, speaking, and there's one module. Applicant always assess on the basis of
reading, listening, writing, speaking. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in these modules, they have individual requirements as compare, and there is a overall requirements. So if I say if someone department says we need someone to have a competent English, which means that applicant need to have a 6 band each in all of the 4 modules. But when we move to PTE, it's equivalent to 50 points. So this is how it's basically different. But good thing is, like I have noticed that in overseas, when someone has to apply for the student visa, those people only in the market there is a news that if someone has done IELTS academic, then only Australian government accept that English score for student visas. But IELTS journal is for skill migration. But in terms of Australian legislation, there is no such difference between the Australian in the journal or academic module. If either of those, if you have any of the modules with the correct score requirements, it's accepted by the Australian government.
Okay, thank you. You talked about that all are same and 6 could be a good score. So if I get more than 6, will it be some advantage? Number 1, A. And number B, what is the cutoff for student? Is there any cutoff for student visa also? Any marks?
Yes. So your first question is what is cutoff? So I believe you're talking about the skilled visa.
Yeah.
So to be eligible for the skilled visas, applicant need to have a 6 each in all the 4 modules. If anyone have a less than 6 band each or 50 points in PTE, less than 50 points in PTE, then they are not eligible for the skilled visa. And in terms of second question, that what is the cutoff for the student visa? So as per legislative requirement, the minimum score required is 5.5 overall, right? But again, there is a catch in that one. So if we are focusing towards the vocational education sector, 5.5 is acceptable by most of the institutes. But when we are trying to go in the university or a higher education sector, so if we say we are trying to go in a registered nurse course or Bachelor of Nursing, so 5.5 is not acceptable because university's requirement is 7 band each. So in university levels, every course have their own requirements. So if you meet that requirement, then only university will give you admission. Otherwise, in terms of immigration perspective, 5.5 is good enough.
Okay, I was not aware of that. So it's good. Thank you, Sumit. So for education, it may depend on the course you're going in for,
Yes.
or the institute you're going in for, which again forces us to talk to the relevant people or the educating people, right? Now, Sumit, is there any good or bad cities in Australia to live in as the terms of quality of life or job opportunities? Or sometimes I've even heard people saying that I have moved from city X to city Y to get the PR. What does that mean? I mean, how does that differ?
Robin, Pretty much all the cities are same in Australia in terms of you can say atmosphere wise, or you can say facilities wise. But yes, when we narrow these things, and when we look into the peer perspective, then regional cities are more chances of getting a permanent residencies as compared to Melbourne and Sydney or Brisbane. Now in Australia, there are three major cities: Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. So when it's, I'll try to make it more easier for you. Suppose in a Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane, there are 100 people, right? So 100 people are competing each other with to get a permanent residency. But when you go in a regional area, there are only 40, 25, or 30 people living in that regional area. So it means the competition is getting smaller and smaller when you move to regional cities. And then if there is less competition, it means you have a more chances of getting a permanent residency early. So that is the basic criteria. So if you live in a bigger city, you need to compete with other people as well. But because government always try to push the people to go in a regional area so that they can develop regional areas. So they make the criteria easy for permanent residency in a regional areas.
Okay. Now you can kick me under the table if you think my questions are repetitive, but I want to understand as an applicant, so that do I qualify for the skilled migration or not. So my next question again would be: is there any minimum experience that is required to apply for skilled? Is this 3 years, 8 years, 20 years? What is the minimum to qualify as a skilled migrant?
The thing is, like, it all depends upon a skill assessment body, right? So if someone have an occupation with the assessing body, say VETASIS, right, and if they have a highly relevant qualification and 1 year of work experience, that is good enough to get a positive skill assessment. But if their qualification is not a highly relevant, then they might need a 2 years or 3 years of work experience to get a positive skill assessment. If someone qualified from a qualification which is recognized by the Engineer Australia, then they don't need a qualification. So there are certain other modules as well, like Washington Accord or other accords, or even though if you does not fall in any of the accord, you can still go for the skill assessment on the basis of CDRs. In the same way, when we come to the ACS, if someone has an overseas qualification, they need to have a 2 years of work experience in their nominated occupation to get a positive outcome. So it all depends what is the occupation and who is the skill assessing body. But when we come to the visa perspective, there is no such requirement, but the only thing is the more work experience do you have, the more points do you have. If someone has, say, 0 to 3 years of work experience, they won't get any points for the skill migration.
But they still can apply.
Yes, but they still can apply.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that. Now, I have even heard of some people who come to Australia on a tourist visa and then they want to study something here or change the visa to student visa. How does that work?
Yes, it's possible. The only thing is, if they are coming to Australia and their visa does not have a condition which we say 8503, no further stay condition, then yes, they can convert their student visa in tourist visa into student visa.
Okay, so it's possible. People can
It's
do
possible,
that.
yes.
Is there any age on that, or
No, there is no age.
That's wonderful. That's great. Okay, what's the difference between skilled migration and employer-sponsored visa pathways? I mean, there's...
Okay, so skilled visa means whatever you need to do to get a visa, you need to do it by yourself.
Okay.
Right? So whatever is the minimum points required, the applicant need to make that point, although they can include the point of state as well. But when we come to the employer-sponsored visas are not a point-based visas. In that, you need an Australian employer who is ready to sponsor you. Again, in employer-sponsored visas, there are requirement of the work experience as well, and some of the visas have a requirement of skill assessment as well. So it depends which visa you are applying with your employer and what are the requirement. It all depends, but minimum requirement if you are looking towards to apply for employer sponsored visa is 2 years for 482.
Okay, thank you, Sumit. Now, all those people who join us late, we are doing a session on PR2 pathways. If you want our details are on the screen down below. You can even go to our Aussie Migration website or Facebook page. There are a number of ways you can contact us, and please ask your question in the script, okay, as and when be good. Now, Sumit, let's say a family comes here and stays here. They are let's say permanent residents or citizens. How can they bring their parents? What are the ways and means to bring their dependent parents to Australia?
There are different pathways if they want to bring parents to an Australia. The one is they can bring their parents on a tourist visa. They can bring their parents permanently to Australia, and they can bring their parents here if they want their parents to be here for 3 years or 5 years. So it all depends. So tourist visa, parents can stay here for around 1 year period of time. For 3 to 5 years of visa, there is another visa subclass where the parents can stay here for 3 to 5 years. But when we come to like contributory parent visa and some other parent visa subclass, because there are different subclasses and they have a different requirement. Under that, they need to meet a balance of family test. In simple terms, balance of family test means that their parents must have their 50% kids living in Australia who must be permanent resident or an Australian citizen. If they're meeting that requirement, then they can apply for contributory parent visa.
Okay, and obviously we can ask you more questions if I have any specific questions on my family conditions and all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, let's say somebody came here as a tourist or on a student visa. If on a broader terms, we were to talk about the milestones to be a citizen, from student visa till citizen, what are the milestones and what are the journal timelines we are talking about?
See, Robin, once they completed the qualification and if they are if they're
I'm sorry, I'll
eligible-
interrupt here. So complete qualification means what? 6 months, 1
No.
year? So because
Okay.
since we are talking about timelines, that also would be
Yes.
important part of it.
So when I talk about the education qualification, if someone has completed 2 years of qualification,
Okay.
they might be eligible to apply for 485 visa, which is a temporary graduate visa. So it means, so when I talk about qualification, it means 2 years of qualification. So then if the client is eligible to apply for 485 visa, then they will get a 485 visa. It all depends. Government has recently did some good changes for 485 visa. They increased the timeline for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years as well. So after that, if in those, say, I would say on our first 2 years, if they get a positive skill assessment, if they get an invitation to apply for any skill visa, then in next 1 year or 1.5 years, they will get a visa. And once they become a permanent resident, then after 1 year, they can apply for a citizen. Now, the main criteria for citizenship is the applicant need to have in Australia for at least 4 years, and they need to be as a permanent resident for 1 year. So here when I said they are eligible to apply for citizenship, I have calculated the time period which they spend from student visa, 485 visa, skilled visa, and then to the citizenship. But if someone has come directly, say on a 189 visa from India, then it does not mean that after 1 year they are eligible to apply for citizenship. They need to apply after 4 years.
So when you say 4 years, they can travel to their home country with us,
Yes,
right? 4
they-
years does not mean that they would not leave the post,
No,
right?
they can. They are allowed to go outside Australia. They can come here outside Australia, but there are, yes, certain requirements which they need to meet in terms of residency. If they don't meet that requirement, then they need to postpone that, say, citizenship application for 1 year.
Okay.
Like we always calculate the residency requirements, whether the applicant is meeting the requirement or not.
Okay, fair enough. I heard there is a form 80 or something, travel of record. That's also very important because not many people keep that. Could you tell us that? There's a form 80 or something, record of travel or something
No,
like that?
Form 80 is basically a form for a character assessment. That is a different sort of
okay,
form.
I'm sorry.
But whenever we lodge a citizenship application, department wants a proof to the date, like when you arrived first. I think prior to 2015, department do the stamping on the passports whenever someone arrived in Australia. But I think they stopped since 2015
Yeah,
or
it's all electronic
2016
now.
something.
Yeah.
Now they just put in the system. So to apply for citizenship, we need to retrieve international travel movement record from the department, and normally we attach that one as a proof, with showing that when they arrived first in Australia.
Yeah, so the reason for asking was I was talking to one of the clients and he was not aware of that I need to maintain the record or ask for the record. That's why. Okay, now we'll go back to our list of questions that we've received. But once again, we'll take a question from the chart. We have Sujata who's asking us that what are the earliest and the earliest PR pathway for overseas registered nurse like Nepal with 3 years of bachelor's of degree and working experience also. She did not mention her working experience, but yeah, okay, let's take ballpark 3 years or 5 years of experience.
The Sujata, if you want to move to Australia as a registered nurse, the first thing, there is a different pathway for the overseas qualified nurses. With the overseas qualified nurses, you can only able to apply for the skilled visa if you are registered with the AFRA and you have a positive skill assessment with the NMAX. So there are certain requirements of the AFRA which applicant need to first fulfill, and then only they can get a registration from the AFRA. One of the requirement I would say is like in terms of English, they need to have a 7 each, and there are other requirements as well. So I would say if you want us to assess your profile, I would say just send us your CV first so that we will see, and then only we can advise you that which steps you need to go, because there are 2 or 3 steps involved in this whole scenario to get a registration from AFRA. So then only we can advise you. But yes, you if you are overseas qualified, you can still apply for the visa for Australia.
Thank you. That reminds me of one of the Google review that I got. It was told by one of our client that if I ask one question and you give me an answer, there are 3 other questions that come up in my mind. I think that's right. I mean, there could be 15 questions that we draw out of one question. It's technical. It's not difficult. That's why we must always reach out to authorized people to seek advice. Now, as we sit on today, which is 31st of July 2023. Is there any important policy or visa updates that we should be aware of as on date? Obviously, it may change 3 months down the line, but as on date.
See, on 31st of July, I can't say anything much going to be changed. The government has done some changes from 1st of July. They increase, the 485 timeline for the students. The bad news was they reduced the working hours for the students. And now I think everyone is eagerly waiting for the list and the new rules from the states, because right now the skill migration on a hold, because everyone is waiting for when the allocations will be go to the states, and when state will publish their requirements, so that then people will start lodging their state nomination applications.
Okay, now if I were to apply for let's say skilled visa, from where do I start? What all? How should I talk to an agent or you first, or how do I start?
See, the first thing is it's always good to go to the registered agent. All right. The first step is a skill assessment. So skill assessment is a very, very critical and crucial step. So always advise to go to the agent who have the knowledge and who has been in this industry and do a work. So discuss your case, and then only can start the process.
Okay, we got another question from Kashish Vishish. She says that what are the pathway of MBA students now studying in Australia?
Okay, Kashish.
Thank you, Kashish.
Yeah, thank you, Kashish. If we go in a normal market, people says, or some agent says, or some advisor says, there is nothing for the MBA kids. But it's a wrong advice. I would say there is a lot of for everyone here in Australia. If someone has done an MBA, so and after completion of MBA, if they do a 1 year of job in a managerial position in occupation which is on the list, they can apply for the skill assessment and can apply for the skill visas. But yes, it depends which occupation you are targeting, and you need to work in that occupation for 1 year to get a skill assessment.
Okay, thank you. Now, some people talk about visa extension. What is that? What is visa extension?
In legal terms, there is no such, you can say, terminology visa extension.
Okay.
Right. So once the visa is granted, it's granted. So if someone wants to extend their stay in Australia, they need to apply for the new visa.
Mm-hmm.
Right. For example, if someone here on a tourist visa for 3 months, they want to extend their visa. In now normal terminology, it says extension, but it's not. It's a new application. Department assess the new application with the requirements and then only grant a visa. So extension is nothing in books, but in normal words, yes, it's.
Okay, thank you. Now, when I apply, I'm giving my own example as in the first person. Now, if someone or an applicant wants to apply for a skilled migration, which all family members he should include? Who all should he include?
Okay, so in legislation, there are two different definitions of a family members. One is a member of family unit, and one is a family member. So when someone wants to apply for the skill visa, they can only include a member of family unit. So when I say member of family units, it means primary applicant, their spouse, and their kids. That's it. They can't include their siblings. They can't include their parents.
Okay, fine. Now, if let's say two cases, A as a student visa and B as a skilled migration, what are the health requirements or medical checks that one has to go through? How serious are they? How much time it takes?
So when we come to the student visa, their medical assessment is quite straightforward. They do X-ray, they do a normal blood check and urine check. But when we go to the permanent visa, government do a HIV test, and there are a lot of other tests, because the purpose is once the person become a permanent resident, they are eligible to get a medical facility, and government does not want a person who is burden on a public health sector. So that's why they do checks. But yes, even though if someone is suffer from some diseases, there are waivers available as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, are there any state specific migration options that we have? Let's say Victoria versus South Australia, or
Yeah, so whenever federal government announce seat allocations, they give a particular number of seats to every state. They give seats to like 491, 190, or business visas and all those seats. So it depends which states have how many number of seats, and but with the seat, when they allocate the seats to the states, it does not mean that the federal government does not intervene that how the state wants to nominate that person. So then states makes their own rules that which people they need in their states, and accordingly they give a state nomination. And later, if when application went to federal Department of Home Affairs, they assess whether applicant meet all the requirements to grant a visa, and then they grant the visa.
Okay, thank you. Now we are already sitting on 42 minutes. We had a 45 minutes time slot. So guys, once again, I'll let you know that we are available for your advice. For the details are on the website, Facebook page, WhatsApp, other details. So please feel free to reach out to us. Please ask your questions. The whole session that we are doing here is because we saw a lot of misleading information floating in the market. As a responsible organization and as a responsible leader, Sumit decided that we should share some information back to the market. People has given us so much respect, so much good name to the brand. So we feel responsible to share some relevant information back to you so that you are able to make a cautious call or an informed call. And once again, we'll be coming up with a lot of series. Next episode that we're going to have is going to be focused on student or study visa only. So if we drop the call, don't worry, we will be reaching out back to you. Just subscribe us, just follow us so that you don't miss the relevant information. Okay, another question that I wanted to ask you was that how is the fees paid for this process? How the fees are?
Do you mean skilled?
Skilled, yeah, let's talk about skilled.
Okay, with the skilled visas, the fees, I believe you're talking about the legal fees.
Yeah.
So it's on a step-by-step basis. So as I said, the first step is for, say, skill assessment. So you need to pay the fees for the skill assessment, and then you need to wait for the outcomes. If you get a positive skill assessment, and then you are moving towards the state nomination, then you need to lodge a EOI and wait for the pre-invitation, or even though if you need to lodge a state nomination, they have their own fees, then you need to pay the fees for the state nomination. So once you get the invitation, then you need to lodge a visa application and you need to pay the visa fees.
So tell me if I'm understanding it right. Let's say if there were 3 stages, so I'll pay the fees only for first stage, and if I don't clear that, I need not pay the rest of the fees.
No.
Oh, that's very good. That's actually good. So which means that if I'm clearing the one stage after another, I would be more keen to pay the fees because I want to land in Australia fast.
Even like what we do with our clients as well is we always do installments. We don't charge everything upfront.
Okay.
We normally do the installments like two
The
or
service
three.
fees you
Yeah,
mean.
service fees,
Okay.
2 or 3 installments, so that it won't be a burden on the clients as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And other than the service fees, Sumit and the team also does a lot of sessions, a lot of webinars, which is free of cost also. So it's not that we are here in for money. We are actually connected with the cause of migration. We are actually connected to be a responsible organization in the society. That's the whole idea. Money obviously shall follow. Now we are done on this. Once again, thank you Sumitji for taking out your time. We will request you to come again on the session quite soon. I don't know what the date is. We will publish the dates on the website. Guys, do stay in touch. We wish you a lot of luck. Immigration is one important thing in life where the whole thing changes. Your life changes, your spouse life changes, your kids have a better life. So it's an important milestone in anybody's life. The decision is quite important in life. So we should be very responsible while choosing the advice that we take. That's the whole message. We wish you a lot of love and luck, and stay connected with us. We have another question from Kumar. Kumar, we will be reverting to you on a personal message. I'm sorry, the time's up. I won't be able to take your question. That's I'm an MBA graduate from Nepal. Kumar, we'll get back to you on that one. Thank you guys once again. Thank you, Sumitji.
Thank you very
much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.